Episode 115 of Australia's #1 marketing show. It's time for a little reflection.
Welcome to the Small Business Big Marketing Show, where successful small business owners share their secrets to take your marketing to the next level. Now here's your host, Tim Reid.
G'day everyone and welcome back to episode 115 of Australia's favourite small business marketing show. I'm your host, Timbo Reid. You right there are a very motivated small business owner, and we are brought to you by the very good folk at Net Registry, who, by the way, just sent me a very, very nice bottle of red wine. Don't drink myself, but my beautiful wife, Sophie, likes a little sip every now and then. She will enjoy that immensely. I bet you didn't know I didn't drink. Maybe you never thought about it, but that's one thing you'll learn about me in this episode, plus a number of other things as we get stuck into what is going to be a reflective episode. This is, I'm recording this. I don't normally date my episodes, but I'm recording this on New Year's Eve, 2012. Now, it's not like, 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night. I do have a life. I'm doing this early morning, but I thought what a great time to maybe reflect on the year. It's a little bit cliched, I know, but I did put it out to my LinkedIn group, the Small Business Big Marketing LinkedIn group. I did put it out to the Small Business Big Marketing Facebook page and said, what do you reckon I should do, guys? Because just actually what I have right now, I'm sitting on just 4 great interviews that I did in December. Like, just fantastic interviews. I'll tell you a little bit more about a couple of them later, but I was deciding, should I go out with them now over the Christmas break, or do I do a bit of a reflection episode? And the overwhelming 75%, overwhelming majority said do a reflection on 2012. People wanted to get a little bit more insight into some of the interviews that I've previously done. What rocked my boat, what didn't, some marketing insights that came our way over the year, and keep the good stuff until January, which is what I'm going to do. So, I will be in a little bit of a reflective mood. And, this is kind of interesting for me doing this episode because, look, I know you know that I love a chat and that, talking's not a weak point of mine. However, my episodes, the Small Business Big Marketing Show, is about me interviewing small business owners who are cracking it with their marketing. So there's generally someone else there at the other end of the line. Today, it's just me and the mic, me and Mike. But that's cool. That's cool. I'm just going to rattle and see where it takes us. Suffice to say, I promise there to be some marketing gold hidden amongst the ramblings. Now, so that's why I'm doing it. Reflective episode. Okay, how can I not start this episode on reflection of 2012 without mentioning Lukey's departure? So for those of you who have been listening to the show for the last 34 episodes, that's been just me. But up until episode 80, and for about 2.5 years, I did Small Business Big Marketing with a great mate of mine, Luke Moulton. And Lukey left at episode 80. Go back and have a listen to that. I think I even cracked a tear at the end. But Lukey left after a long time, and that was a sad departure because it was a couple of mates up until then who had a bit of a hit and a giggle around marketing, and Lukey was always the mechanic. He's the guy who got things done, and I was the guy who just tried to I don't know what I tried to do, have the conversations, do the interviews, lead the way. But Lukey moved down the coast. He had a second child, or his wife had a second child. He didn't. He took a full-time job. Life sometimes gets in the way. What's that John Lennon quote? Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. But, that was a sad time for the show and for me, but the show had to continue on. One of the things, too, was that I just love interviewing and I wanted to do more interviews, and Lukey just couldn't commit to that, which was fully understandable. Had a chat to Lukey just yesterday, and he is going along beautifully. For all of those who did love hearing Luke's dulcet tones on the Small Business Big Marketing Show. So, that was a poignant moment throughout the year when Lukey left. Listeners, feel free to go back if you haven't listened to the back catalogue. up until episode 80, you will hear Luke and I rambling on. And I always used to start the show with that Lukey, which I'm sure turned a lot of people off right there and then, broke every rule of interviewing or hosting shows. Capture people's attention first. But, what was amazing, like, let's talk guests. Let's move into that, because I was so concerned about that first guest that I was going to get after Luke left the show, because it was going to be me flying solo, just doing interviews with other people and not having Luke to bounce off. But sure enough, my first guest in episode 81 was this guy called Steve Sims. Oh, my God. He was a guest given to me from heaven. So I had the way it went was my son Jack said to me about a week prior to getting Steve on the show. He said, "Hey, Dad, do you know you can go down to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean and check the Titanic out?" And I've gone, "No, I didn't, and I have to go and interview the guy who organises that." So I do a Google search, and Steve Sims' company Bluefish comes up. And whilst they're not, and I contacted him directly, and whilst he's not the guy who actually drives the submarine. Do you drive submarines? Drives a submarine down to the Titanic. He is the guy who can organise it for you. So I sent an email to Steve, and this is so common in organising guests for my show. I sent an email to Steve through the contact form on his website. Hits me back within 12 hours. He's based in LA. Would love to do an interview. And it was just amazing. Go back and have a listen to episode 81. What the marketing learning from that was that you can break through walls, pick up the phone, call someone, ask a question. People are responsive, and Steve has this ability to get stuff done just by picking up the phone. And my learning from that was, so often we're maybe scared of picking up the phone and taking action, and maybe asking someone for something or approaching someone that we'd never think of asking. Excuse me. One of the things I noticed with doing this show is that I'm amazed at just who you can get in contact with and who says yes. I've had very few people say no along the way to an interview, and I more and more take Steve Sims' advice and just pick up the phone when I want something or when I have an idea and want to share it with someone, and it's amazing. Sometimes there's a few Dobermans to get through, and it is handy to say, "Hey, I want to interview you," as opposed to, "Hey, I want to sell something to you." But anyway, Steve Sims, first guest post Luke, was just a guest from heaven. Let's talk about some other guests that came along throughout the year. There was lots of episodes, guys, so I can't go through every one. But one of the feedbacks that came through the LinkedIn group was that tell us about some of the more kind of interesting guests that kind of struck a chord. So Lloyd Perry was from a company, Big Richard Condoms, and I saw Lloyd speak at an event I went to earlier in the year, and I love it when I see a small business doing great marketing. That's the premise of this show. And Lloyd is exactly that. Here's a guy with a company called Big Richard Condoms. The guy's got a sense of humour, yeah? Great story though with Lloyd. He registered the name Big Richard and had this idea of going and creating a clothing brand with it. He went to a bunch of venture capitalists and said, "Hey, this is my idea." They all knocked him back, but one of them went up to him afterwards and said, "Hey, Lloyd, love the idea of the brand name Big Richard, but as a clothing brand, doesn't cut it. As a condom brand, it cuts it. If you go and manufacture condoms or license condoms, call them Big Richard Condoms, you've got my money, you've got my backing." And that's what he did. Now, that's a great story in itself, but what I love about the way Lloyd markets his business, and I think we can all learn a lot from this, is a number of things. He breaks some rules. He throws caution to the wind. He has a condom delivery truck. Seriously, like a truck with Big Richard Condoms on the side. He delivers condoms around Sydney in. He sells packages. I love packages as a marketing tool. You will have heard me speak about this previously. Package things up. It adds emotion, and there's a greater perceived value when we package things up. Maccas do it all the time. I used to do it when I was the marketing manager at Flight Centre all the time. You take component parts, put them together in a package, and then you've got something that has greater value than the individual parts alone. 1 and 1 equals 11. Lloyd's packages, Big Richard Condoms package. He's got the Shaggers pack. He's got the Superman pack. He's got the Couples pack. Fantastic way of bringing his products together. The other thing I loved about what Lloyd does is he sells via S-commerce. Now, pricing's one of those things that, I don't know, it's just a common question that keeps coming up. And I do have to get a pricing expert on the show. I keep saying that. Haven't found that person yet. He sells via S-commerce, subscription commerce. Hello, he sells condoms via a monthly subscription. I mean, who would have thought? Have a think about how maybe what could your business sell via a monthly subscription as opposed to one-off sales? Amazing stuff. What else did he do? Look, that's pretty much it from Lloyd. But boy, oh boy, I just love the way he went around breaking the rules. That's what he did very cleverly. And I just think we can learn a lot from that. What can your business do differently to its competitors in order to stand out from the crowd in a crowded marketplace? Okay, another guest, Phil McKenny. Speaking of, what I just posed then, that question, what can your business do in a crowded marketplace to stand out? Phil McKenny is the author, the creator of Killer Questions, this innovation process called Killer Questions. And I loved it. I've been listening to Phil for about 7 years. He was one of the first podcasters. In fact, I think he was the first podcast I ever listened to. At the time, he was Vice President of Innovation at Hewlett-Packard. He subsequently retired and created this kind of whole process, this whole way of thinking around innovation called Killer Innovations. And at the heart of Killer Innovations were Killer Questions. And I loved this whole thing about challenging the conventions of the category in which you operate and looking at your business from different angles. And Lloyd did that beautifully, and Phil teaches this whole concept beautifully. Killer questions are like, what do people hate about doing business with you? That's a really challenging question. What would you have to change about your product or service in order to charge 10 times the value that you're currently charging? Killer questions like that really get you to look at things differently. I was awestruck when I got Phil as a guest on the show, because I just listened to him for so long that he was a bit of a marketing kind of podcasting guru in my mind. Really thoroughly enjoyed Phil, and he was so giving. And I always ask people, who's the most famous person you've met? At the end of most interviews, his most famous person he was friends with the late Steve Jobs, which was fantastic. Used to go to basketball games with him, his kid, and Steve's kid. So that was fantastic in itself. Okay, so another episode. Well, the most recent episode I did, Tom Dixon from Will It Blend fame. That was a coup for me. Getting Tom on, episode 114, getting Tom on the show, I couldn't believe it. This is a great example of how many people say yes to appearing on the show. For those of you who haven't listened to 114, go back and have a listen to it. Will It Blend is the most viral video marketing series in the world. And basically, Tom has a blending company called BlendTech, in which he has a viral video marketing series where he just blends anything in his blenders, hockey pucks, iPads, iPhones, you name it, to prove that it will blend. Now, this is a great example of that great old saying, don't tell me you're funny, tell me a joke, right? And I just love that as a marketing strategy. And Tom absolutely lived it to its nth degree. Great guy. Right up front, he tells me he suffers from attention deficit disorder and that he's dyslexic. And it was like, wow. He certainly proved his attention deficit, because I had to keep on holding him on subject, and that in itself was fun. And I've had a couple of people come back to me since that interview saying, it was really interesting seeing the tracks that Tom went down when he did lose attention on the question that I'd asked, and that in itself was often interesting. Some of the places my interviews go, it fascinates me. So I'm sure it fascinates you. What else have we got? Okay, Andrew Griffiths. Okay, so AG and I now have this, about every 4 or 5 episodes of Small Business Big Marketing is now dedicated to a show called Funny Business, or to an episode called Funny Business. And this is a great example of joint venturing. You know, another great marketing strategy to get that leverage is for when you identify another person or another business that you can do a joint venture with in order to get in front of their customers, they get in front of your customers, and you build your audience or your customer base that way. And this is what Andrew and I did. You know, I met Andrew at the Key Person of Influence event. That's a course I did during the year, KPI. And in fact, I interviewed Daniel, who was the creator of that course. Great interview in itself. Talk about that shortly. And Glenn Carlson from KPI, who spoke about how to get 500 bums on seats, which he does on a regular basis, fills rooms, clever guy. Back to AG. So AG and I had AG. Andrew Griffiths is Australia's #1 small business author. He's published, I think it's 11 books on small business, quite prolific in that sense. So I had AG come on a couple of times throughout the year. One was about how to publish a book, how to publish a book, and how to create killer content. And, you know, on reflection, those 2 interviews were so appropriate because I think, you know, I won't keep my powder dry as to what I think is going to happen in 2013. I think content marketing is going to be massive. Content marketing is going to be, you know, like... here's the thing. I'm going to digress here. Remind me to come back to Andrew Griffiths in a minute. You know, we are all standing on a mountain of knowledge. Every single one of us as business owners, as marketers, knows a lot about something, about some particular product, industry, service, brand, whatever it is that we sell. We know a lot about it. Content marketing gives us the ability to share that content in an engaging way. It's that pull marketing, not push marketing. You know, the old push marketing of advertising, of direct marketing. Well, content marketing pulls people towards you. So interviewing Andrew about book creation and how to create killer content was incredibly appropriate. And what I'm noticing is that the ability to create content is becoming easier and easier and easier. Content, I'm talking about blogs, podcasts, video marketing, ebooks, forums, you name it. Any way that allows you to share your content in a detailed way. Social media in itself is a form of content marketing, and it's becoming easier. I would really encourage you, and we'll talk a lot about content marketing in the coming year, but I'd encourage all of you to look at ways that you can embark on a content marketing strategy. And I know in the Deep Dive Mastermind that I run every Tuesday, you know, I've got a lot of people in there, a lot of members of the mastermind are doing exactly that. And we spend a lot of time talking about that. But look, going back to Andrew as a guest, fantastic. I mean, that whole thing about book publishing, you know, the glorified business card. I loved that insight of, you know, imagine sitting at the boardroom table with a prospect over the other side and you sitting along a competitor. The competitor hands over his or her business card and you hand across your book. Who's going to get the business, or at least who's going to be looked on in more glowing fashion? So the whole book publishing thing, it's something that I've been working on and continue to work on. I will get a book out in 2013. There, I've said it. I was hoping it'd be 2012, but wow, you know, life gets in the way, work gets in the way, and it's such a big commitment. Or it's sort of a big commitment in my mind. Don't know. For other people, they just seem to be able to knock them out. Andrew's written 11. That is prolific. I seem to be able to knock out podcast episodes. I can talk better than I can write. So yeah, that whole thing. And then just doing Funny Business with Andrew, it was really nice. For me, it was a great way to break up doing interview after interview, although I do love doing interview after interview. Having someone come into Small Business Big Marketing headquarters like Andrew and just have some banter. And, you know, what I do is put up on the Facebook, you know, what questions have you got for Andrew and I around small business, topics that you want us to throw around. And that's generally how we garner the subjects to cover in an episode of Funny Business. Another guest that I thoroughly enjoyed having was Tommy Nicolosi. Oh my goodness. Tommy Nicolosi owns a sandwich shop in downtown Philadelphia, and he won America's Best Sandwich for 2012, thanks to the Man vs. Food show on the Food Channel. And he won this. And, this interview, here's the thing. Tommy is just a very, very small business. I think it's a fourth generation sandwich stand in downtown Philadelphia. He runs it with his son. He makes this incredible pork sandwich, which I haven't tasted, obviously, but I have seen videos of it and pictures of it, and he describes it. The marketing lesson from Tommy Nicolosi was all about quality. He was, if marketing is made up of 4 or 5 P's, product, place, price, promotion, people, then Tommy was all about product. He didn't give in. If the product wasn't good enough, he wouldn't put it to market. He did not. He did not squander on any aspect of it. And it's been like that generation after generation. He's drilled it into his son, and his dad drilled it into Tommy. And I just love that interview. He was such a giving guy, and he loved being interviewed. He loved the attention that being on Man vs. Food had got him, and Sandwich of the Year. And Tommy was like, this classic Philadelphian guy, Italian heritage, and his most famous person that he'd met was the Fonz, was Henry Winkler, who had just been into his shop a week earlier, which I thought was kind of appropriate because Tommy himself reminded me a bit like the Fonz. Now, talk about living the dream. We all want to live the dream. We all want that work-life balance. We want to do stuff we love. And a couple of interviews around that topic really came to mind. One was Fab from the Little Veggie Patch, and the other was Eugene from Aqua Bumps. Let me explain. Fab from the Little Veggie Patch. Fab was another Italian guy, grew up in an Italian family, always ate veggies from the backyard, went into business with another mate who was a landscape gardener, and started this wonderful business called the Little Veggie Patch, which are basically little apple crates that they take to people's homes, generally in the inner city suburbs of Melbourne, and they plant veggie patches. And then they plant them up with seasonal vegetables, and then come in every 3 months, pick them and turn them over and replant another set of seasonal veggies. Great idea, beautifully presented. What I loved about Fab is he just loves veggies, and he loves gardening, and he's doing what he loves. The marketing is sensational. They have a beautiful looking brand, and I'm talking like in terms of literally to be as superficial as say their logo design was beautiful. Their website design is beautiful. They have got 2 books on the market that rival any Jamie Oliver book that I have ever seen. And if you know me, I love Jamie Oliver. I love his whole brand. Probably one of my favourite brands in the world is the whole Jamie Oliver phenomenon. The Little Veggie Patch guys are knocking on that door, and we can learn a lot from the aesthetic way those guys present their brand. They're just a small business, okay? They don't have huge marketing budgets, but they have a beautiful looking brand, and doing amazing joint ventures. At the time of interviewing Fab, he had done a joint venture with Federation Square, which was the biggest outdoor space in CBD Melbourne, to install about 180 Little Veggie Patch boxes as a sort of public display, growing vegetables for all the restaurants in Federation Square. And, for him, it got massive media coverage. The guy is living the dream. Another guy who is living the dream is Eugene from Aqua Bumps. Now, Aqua Bumps, an amazing story. It is the 3rd most visited tourist attraction in Sydney, behind the Harbour Bridge and the Sydney Opera House. And this is a small business. That's as rated by the Lonely Planet Sydney Travel Guide. So Eugene, here's what he does. He goes down to Bondi Beach every day in the morning, 6 a.m, 5:30 a.m, and takes photos for an hour and a half. And then he uploads them to his website and emails them out to a database of about 40 to 50,000. It might even be more by now, 50,000 on his list. He has a shop down on Bondi Beach where he sells the photos. He travels to other beach destinations around the world because tourist bureaus want him to photograph their beach because they know it'll get them exposure. Eugene is living his dream. He loves surfing. He was a commercial photographer at an advertising agency for many years, stuck in the cubicle warrior, I think as he called himself. But now he goes and just does what he loves. And that all started, he talks about how it started by he was going down to Bondi Beach and taking photographs anyway and just uploading them to Flickr or to Facebook and sharing them with his mates. And then his mates started to sharing and people would sort of email him and say, hey, Eugene, can you include me on your list? Love what you're doing. Can you send me a photo? So couple of great examples there of small businesses living the dream, doing what they love. And I think one of the common threads, there's probably two common threads of every single guest I've ever had on the Small Business Big Marketing show. One is they are all doing what they love. You know, they don't think, oh, geez, I've got to get up in the morning. Here we go again. They jump out of bed and get out of the morning and do what they love. The second thread that kind of linked all of them is that they are absolute action takers. You know, every single one of them, it just takes swift action. They don't wait for it to be perfect. They don't wait for all the ducks to line up. They just take action. And really consistent theme in speaking to every single guest that I've had on the show. Okay, another guest. I don't know about you, but I got caught up. I don't watch a lot of telly. No, I don't. I probably watch, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 hours a week, if that. A lot of it being footy during the footy season. However, I got caught up in The Voice this year. I loved The Voice. My kids loved The Voice. It was just a nice thing to do. I was really enjoying it, watching with the kids, whatever night it was, Tuesday, Wednesday night. And I happened to be at an event where Adrian Swift, who was the executive producer of The Voice, was speaking. And he was talking about, obviously, the success of The Voice, and it was right during the peak success of The Voice. It hadn't just started and it hadn't finished. It was right in the middle of the season of The Voice. And he was talking about just how unbelievably successful it was and how it had taken them by surprise and how they were really flying by the seat of their pants, making decisions every single night regarding the production and the marketing of that show. And he spoke a lot about the social media behind that show. There was some crazy amount of tweets, tens of thousands of tweets coming in a 60-minute period, which they had to kind of filter and get to air. Great examples of that. And don't know, there was something about, you know, I always interview small business owners on the show. Adrian Swift wasn't a small business owner and not really even a marketer. He's an executive producer, although I kind of believe we're all marketers. So first and foremost, before being a business owner, if you're going to be a business owner or have something to do with a business, you are a marketer. At the time of interviewing Adrian, I had the idea of bringing to market another show, another podcast called Big Business, Big Marketing, where I would interview owners, marketing directors of big brands and talk about how they go about marketing. I ended up not taking that to market because it was just, you know what, it was just another idea that was going to take away my focus from the things that I was doing. Small business, big marketing being one of them, marketing coaching being another, keynote speaking being another. You know, there's only so many hours in the day. So I interviewed Adrian on the premise of big business, big marketing, didn't do it, but ended up putting it to air under the banner of small business, big marketing. And it was a great interview. Probably the biggest insights were around social media. I just loved hearing a bit of the background goss around The Voice, how it came to be, how they chose the judges, the dynamics between the judges, all that type of stuff was interesting. But I think as a small business marketing insight, have a listen to that episode around the whole social media aspect. By the way, I'm going to put links to every single one of these interviews that I'm covering in the show notes for episode 115, which you'll find at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. Okay, next guest that really kind of grabbed my attention, piqued my interest, guy called Jules Watkins. Jules, this was a different interview, and whenever I do a how-to interview, it always gets particular attention. I know how much you as my listeners love the whole how-to thing. You know, how do you do this? I mean, how-to is one of the most searched prefixes on Google, because we're all wanting to know how to. If you ever go down the track of video marketing or blogging, a how-to video or a how-to blog post always gets shared a lot, always gets high downloads, gets read a lot. So Jules Watkins had created this product called iPhone Video Hero or iVideo Hero. He was an producer on the BBC in London, on MTV. He'd worked on Pimp My Ride. The guy knows audio visual kind of stuff really well. And he went off and created this. What he realized, he identified a problem in the market. Hey, that's a good marketer. Identify a problem, solve it, take it and productize it, make it a service or a product. Jules did exactly that. He realized that we've all got iPhones. The iPhones have got a fantastic video camera in them, but not many people knew how to use it to create great business and great marketing videos. So Jules put together a fantastic training course, online training course that showed you how to create great videos great business videos using your iPhone. Solved a problem, was very single-minded, was incredibly focused, and was incredibly, it covered every aspect of that area. So it was like, or get your audio right, get your backgrounds right, how to shoot indoors versus outdoors, how to get testimonials, how to do this, how to do that, how to frame it. And it just covered everything. And it was a beautiful product. I think it's $97. Once again, I'll put a link in the show notes to it. And that interview just got a lot of traction, and we could learn a lot from it, not only as a way of embarking on a video marketing strategy, which is a good thing, certainly on my list for 2013, but also, because that's just part of content creation. One of the things with video, by the way, guys, is that video is the highest, richest form of content. So off the back of video, you can create audio, you can rip the audio, you can get the audio transcribed and turn it into a report. You can add slides to it. It's infinitely shareable and repurposable. Is that a word? It's easy to repurpose. And hey, Google love video, don't they? Google on YouTube. And so I'm bigger on audio. I think audio is more consumable in more places. The amount of listeners I get sending me notes saying, I listen to you in the gym, in bed at night, on the way to work, in the train, when I go for a run. You can't do that with video. You can do it with audio. Suffice to say, video is an important marketing strategy, which every one of us should be embarking on in 2013. The Jules Watkins interview will show you how. All you need is an iPhone. All right, Rebecca Smart. What a beautiful woman Rebecca Smart is. She has a business. It's a social enterprise called Street, spelt S-T-R-E-A-T, and she has coffee shops and carts around Melbourne in which she only employs homeless young people and gets them trained in the hospitality industry so they can go on and get a job for life. And Rebecca was, she was a scientist at the CSIRO until she had this idea. She went on, I think she took some long service leave, went away to Vietnam or somewhere, and just kind of had one of those aha moments which changed her life. She rang up a partner who was also in some governmental role, public service role, and said, what about we do this? And they both embarked on starting Street and making a difference. It was just a great, it was just a beautiful show about how, I think I titled it, how to make money, how to make a difference and make money at the same time, because it's not a not-for-profit, it's a social enterprise. So great interview with Rebecca, very giving, loved it. I found Rebecca, I heard her on an interview on the ABC one morning, and once again, just sent her an email through the Street website, said, how about an interview? And the next thing you know, I'm interviewing her. So, guys, often we put up barriers, we put blockages to think, it's going to be too hard to do something. From a marketing point of view, take action. As I said, one of the constant themes of all my guests is that they take action. And that's kind of what I've been trying to do with my show in terms of getting guests on. Sometimes I think, gosh, however am I going to get that person on? Like Tom Dixon from Willett Glen. How am I going to, I've got one of the interviews that I'm sitting on that I'll put out in January is with Mia Friedman, a major media personality who went from being a blogger just a simple blog, to now running a multi-million-dollar enterprise, still on the back of her blog, employing 30 people. I never thought I'd get, she's got TV shows, radio shows, newspaper columns, you name it. I never thought I'd get Mia on. I got her on, and boy, oh boy, does she drop some marketing gold. That to come in January 2013. The last guest I'll talk about that really kind of piqued my attention, and I know a lot of your attention as well, was Tom O'Toole, the founder and the owner of Beechworth Bakery. Beechworth Bakery is a bakery business around Victoria. I think there's 6, 7, 8 bakeries. Tom tells it how it is. If you want to just hear an honest interview of an account of a man's life, born in poverty, almost, I don't think he lived in a cardboard box, but I tell you what, it wasn't far from it. Classic story, no shoes, no money, grew up in a large family, and just made good. Tried to take his life in his early 30s, bounced back. I mean, it is an interview that just will have you. I've had so many emails and voicemails about that interview. I know it touched a lot of people's hearts, certainly touched mine. And Tom is now, as well as a baker by heart, you'll always be a baker, but Tom is he's very big on the public speaking circuit. If you ever get a chance to see Tom speak, it is something to behold. So guys, that's just some of the, there was a lot of interviews we did, or I did, over the course of 2012. There's some that came to mind that piqued my interest, that I just think there was some wonderful marketing insights. Every interview I do, here's the way I approach an interview. First of all, I identify someone I want to speak to and I think you'll want to hear from. Number one, right? Number two is when they say yes, I then list the obvious questions and I go, sometimes I ask the obvious questions. Other times I go, you know what? Everyone's asking those questions. Let's go a bit deeper. And I always try to go deeper with my interviews. And I always try to identify that 1, 2, 3 questions that everyone you just want to ask. I always take the attitude, I've got one chance to speak to this person. What do I really, really want to ask them? And what do you really, really want to hear from them? And that's kind of how I approach the interview. And then the other thing I do with interviews is that I try to start, this is really behind the scenes stuff, isn't it? I hope it's of interest. I try to start at a very macro level. Okay, talking about how the business came to be, where the idea came from, and then really drill it down by the end of the interview to getting them to talk about particular areas of their marketing and their business, what keeps them up at night, issues around how they've gone about creating great marketing and all that type of stuff, and getting quite specific. So going to the macro to the micro, and that seems to work pretty well now. So there's some guests that I've had on. I want to share some insight. Well, I've kind of already shared some marketing insights with you that sort of came our way throughout the year. I've just got a list here that I captured before hitting the record button. The how-to thing we've covered. Podcasting as a way of building your brand, guys. I cannot speak highly enough about podcasting as a marketing strategy. Do I need to go on any more about it? I won't go into any great detail. If you listen to podcasts on a regular basis, I think you'll be with me in the sense that they are a good way of building one's personal brand, about building an audience, about generating traffic to your website, to your shop, to your online business, to your offline business. I can't believe that a small business can have their own show. I mean, and that's what a podcast allows you to do. The amount of times where I've been to iTunes and had a look at the rankings. Yes, I look at my rankings. Absolutely, I do. And seen that I'm ranking number 1 against Apple or the Australian Stock Exchange or BBC or Seth Godin. It just spins me out. It allows us to compete. Podcasting allows us to compete on a level playing field. And that's why I created that little service called getyourownshow.com.au, which is a little consultancy business that I have where if you are interested in getting your own show, go and check that out, because that's where I have a 12-step process that helps people like you get your own show. I'm seeing a lot more podcasts come to market. Certainly when I started 3.5 years ago in Australia, there weren't that many. But as I said, creating content is becoming easier. So our challenge these days is to create quality content. It always should have been, by the way. Just because something's easy doesn't mean you create poor content, but creating quality content is the trick. And podcasting as a way of building your personal brand, I'd have a go at it. I seriously would have a go at it. You might be microphone shy, but there's ways of getting over that. You can have co-hosts. You can do interviews. There's a lot of ways of prepping so that you can overcome that microphone fear. And it's just a great marketing strategy. Another marketing insight that came our way over the course of this year were national days. I had Flip Shelton, who Flip has a brand. She's brought to market her own muesli and her own porridge. She'd been making her own muesli for a number of years. Flip is a national TV and radio presenter in Australia who on the side brought to market this porridge and muesli. I interviewed Flip about her porridge, and in fact she'd started National Porridge Day, which I just thought was fantastic. And the whole premise of that was, she was going up against the big brands of cereal manufacturing, and she had no marketing budget. And one day from her kitchen, she said, "You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start National Porridge Day," which happened. I think she started it on the first day of winter. That the first day of winter every year is National Porridge Day in Australia. She'd done a joint venture with a charity called National Tracky Dax Day, which helps young kids who are in hospital. And I just thought it was a fantastic strategy. And in fact, Flying Solo, who partner up with me on this show, also had a national day. I think it was in November this year. No, it was December 7, National Work in the Nude Day. Hey? National Work in the Nude Day. And yes, I worked in the nude, and there was a photo of me working in the nude with my large Blue Yeti microphone strategically placed. So the whole premise of National Work in the Nude Day was very clever. Flying Solo is an online community of solopreneurs, people who work at home, who have the freedom that comes with working at home. And so National Work in the Nude Day was a way of them to further get awareness around the whole Flying Solo movement. It was a lot of fun. I posted that photo of me on their Facebook page. It subsequently found its way onto the Age newspaper's online portal, which I didn't expect. So that got a bit of coverage. If I remember, I will put a photo of that in the show notes for episode 115 of Small Business Big Marketing. But look, as a marketing strategy, I think national days, I think it's really clever. And I think, maybe have a think about what would the national day, here's the killer question. Thanks, Phil McKinney. What would the national day for your business be all about? Marketing insights, just a few more marketing insights. One thing, this has got nothing to do with anything that I've done on the show this year, but McDonald's 30-cent cone. I was just reminded, we grabbed one yesterday. The kids and I did a little bit of a detour. Dad said, "What about a cone, guys?" I've been on this bit of a weight loss thing. I'll touch on that in a minute, but that's my little treat. My 30-cent McDonald's cone is my treat, and we swing in there with the kids. It's such a clever marketing strategy that it's that whole loss leader. I mean, it probably doesn't even cost McDonald's 30 cents, that cone, but, it's such a clever marketing strategy to get people in. And it's a great question that we could be asking ourselves as to what's our loss leader? What's your business's loss leader? I don't know whether every business should have one. I know Andrew Griffiths, in one of the episodes of Funny Business, posed the question, someone's got to be the most expensive in your industry. Why shouldn't it be you? So, that's the other end of the coin, the other side of the coin. But I do like the Macca's 30-cent cone strategy. It gets attention, it gets an audience, it gets lots of people into the business, and I'm sure there's a large percentage who go in for the 30-cent cone and come out having spent $5, $6, $7, $10. So interesting strategy. Another thing that just crossed my desk throughout the year was this Brad Pitt television commercial for Chanel. I kind of admired Brad Pitt as the movie star, the Mr. Hollywood kind of guy up until then. And when I saw that ad he did for Chanel with his long golden locks and that weird statement that he makes at the end, Once again, I'll put a link to it in the show notes, but I just thought it was terrible. And I think sometimes you've just got to be so cognizant of the brand that you are building, whether you're a person or whether you're building a product brand or a service brand, a business brand, that sometimes you got to make the right decisions. And I have a brand process that I call Brand Boff, and that allows you to identify some key pillars of your business which act as filters for when you have to make a decision around your business. What's the personality of your business? Who's your business's best mates? What's your pitch? All that type of stuff. And if you know those things, they act as filters, so that when an opportunity to do a Chanel ad, like with the script that Brad Pitt had to deliver, comes along, you go, you know what? That doesn't fit my brand. And Brad Pitt should have seen that a mile away. I don't know. Maybe he got paid an exorbitant amount. He probably did get paid an exorbitant amount for doing it, but gee, it was average. Another thing that continues to intrigue me off the back of that is social media. It's been around for a few years now. It's no longer, Twitter's no longer new. Facebook's no longer you. YouTube's no longer new. It still continues to intrigue me. I am not going to put my hand up as the marketing guy who has mastered social media. I often get asked if I will speak about social media, and I don't put myself up as the social media guru either. There's enough of those people out there sort of saying they've nailed Facebook or they've nailed Twitter. One of the people I want to get on the show this coming year is someone who has nailed Twitter, who really, really has nailed Twitter. Because, I see people with incredibly large followings relative to who they are or what they do. I just think, how are they gaming the system? I love social media as a way of having conversations online, and that's what it is. Social media is just people having conversations online. Nothing more, nothing less. The same rules apply as if you were having conversations in front of someone face to face. But, it is a time suck. It is absolutely a time suck, and you've got to get it right in order. There's nothing worse than going to a business's Facebook page that hasn't been updated for 3 or 4 weeks, or their Twitter account, or seeing one YouTube video that was put there a year ago. Just doesn't cut it. So social media does continue to intrigue me. I had some guests throughout the year. In fact, let me just grab a drink of water. Hang on. Thank you. That's live podcasting right there. I think one of the guests I did have on during the year was Cameron Parker from Black Milk Clothing, who is nailing social media. That was a great example of how to nail Facebook. Have a listen to that one. I think he's got some crazy amount of followers. It's 180,000 followers who are just raving fans. And Black Milk Clothing is a completely online brand. And in fact, Cameron actually stated that if he had to choose between having a website and having his Facebook, he would actually have Facebook. They sell through Facebook. They sell out of every range they put out. It was a great story, actually. He put out one day, they fully manufacture out of Brisbane. They got a factory of 30 staff in Brisbane, Australia, where they manufacture these leggings. One day the factory was under the pump, they were falling behind, and he put out on their Facebook the fact that they were under the pump and falling behind. The online community went ahead and organised a group of masseurs to go around to the factory and provide massages to all the factory workers. That's the power of social media. But yeah, look, it does continue to intrigue me. I am going to make an effort to get someone who's nailing Twitter, someone who's nailing Facebook. When I say nailing, I mean not just posting great content, but has high engagement with their audience, and that is actually making money from it as a marketing channel, because I see a lot of small businesses still intrigued by it, still think that they need to be on there, still spending lots of time on there. But when you ask them about the return on investment they're getting, they kind of look at you with glazed eyes, or don't know, or are frustrated by it. So the social media thing continues to intrigue. Pinterest has come along, Google Plus has come along, LinkedIn continues to update, looks more like Facebook as the weeks and months go by. That was another interesting interview. Luke and I interviewed the CEO of LinkedIn, Cliff Rosenberg, I think his name was. That was interesting in itself. Cliff gave some great insights into what do you do? How do you use LinkedIn for business? What does the ultimate LinkedIn profile look like? He had a look at my profile and critiqued it. So look, there's a lot of questions around social media. It ain't going away. It's here to stay. So we can't ignore it, nor should we. I think it's the best research you'll ever do, even if you don't get involved in a social media channel. Using the search function on Twitter or Facebook is fantastic for seeing what people are saying in regards to your brand, your product, your industry. That's the cheapest research you'll ever do. I call it marketing voyeurism, because you just kind of you can listen in to your prospects in their natural environment and hear what they've got to say. But yep, it's going to continue. I wonder what the next Facebook or the next Twitter is going to be. There'll be something that comes out in 2013 that is the next Pinterest. Who knows what it'll be? Okay, what have we got here? I've got a title here, Random Ramblings. It's like, wow, well, that's been Random Ramblings already. I hope you're getting value here, guys. As I said, it's a bit of a reflection on the year. One of the things that happened during the year was I got a sponsor. I finally got a sponsor in Net Registry. And that took a whole lot of work, and in the end was incredibly rewarding. It took a whole lot of work for a number of reasons. I think one of the reasons was that, podcasting still hadn't got to that point where people were going, oh yeah, I've got, companies were going, we've got to get involved in podcasts. They're still spending money on radio and TV, press, print. So it was kind of new to be asked to sponsor a podcast. The second thing is I wanted a sponsor that had complete relevance to you, the listener. I wanted a sponsor that, in me talking about them, provided a product or a service that would help you improve your marketing. So, it might have been easy to go and get a telco or a bank, but it wouldn't have been as real as getting a sponsor like, in the end, Net Registry. So Net Registry, made in heaven. The way I found them was, I'd been knocking on doors for 2, 3, 4 months. I'd put together an incredibly detailed sponsorship proposal. I detailed what I had to offer and what I was looking for in return. And I put it out to a lot of companies, had a lot of conversations, but I met the guys from Net Registry, Karen and Sam, at an event I attended. I've attended a lot of events throughout the year too, by the way, and I encourage you as well. I think when you get out of your office, get out of your comfort zone and go and learn something new, it's just valuable. It just kind of changes the dynamic in your head and breaks. It's a bit of a circuit breaker. I digress, but I do encourage you to get out. One of the things I do want to do in 2013, and I'm sort of tossing this one up, but having a couple of live events where we do that, or some meetup groups. Talk about that later. Back to the sponsorship. So I met Karen and Sam from Net Registry at an event I attended. I introduced myself. I loved their brand, their whole stand, their brand at this expo was just so impressive. And it was a business. Net Registry is all about getting your online marketing sorted. So this is a marketing show. It's not just about online marketing, but we do talk about that a lot. And here's a brand in Net Registry that looked very cool. Great people. They were all about getting you domain names, website hosting, website design and development, Google AdWords, search engine optimization. I mean, you name it. They sort you out online. It was just a match made in heaven. So after that, I sent them the proposal. And it wasn't long before they said yes. And it was just like, wow, fantastic. So that happened about 6 months ago now. They signed on for a couple of months to see how it went. It went well. And subsequently, they signed on again, and they continue to be a sponsor of the show. There's a banner on the website. They've even put together exclusive listener packages for small business, big marketing listeners. Website reviews, SEO packages, AdWords packages. Just click on the banner on the website at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com and you'll see them. And they've been fantastic. And as I said, beautiful bottle of wine sitting right in front of me for my lovely wife as a result of that sponsorship. But that's been fantastic. As the show's grown, one of the reasons I needed to seek a sponsor was to fund it, because it is expensive to do the show as the audience grows. The hosting costs increase, the time time you allocate to the show increases, etc., etc. So it was wonderful to be able to write off some of that, to get some funding to make that possible. Because for me, podcasting isn't just a marketing channel; it is actually an end to me. I love podcasting. I love doing the interviews, and it's kind of a thing that I want to do. I'm going to be doing a lot more in 2013, and Net Registry have allowed me to do that. So I hope you enjoyed. I found it hard at the start. If you listen to some of those early shows where I had to integrate a sponsor into the show, and I got a little bit of kickback from not many listeners, like a very small minority of listeners. But sometimes you take that stuff personally. I know one listener said, "Oh, here we go, he's selling out." It's not selling out. It's just allowing me to do more of this stuff, which I know there's a whole lot of people benefiting from. The amount of listener email, voicemail I get is just fantastic. The reviews that you leave on iTunes, just fantastic. And that keeps me inspired to do the comments you leave in the show notes for episodes. I know it's making a difference. The amount of touching emails and communication I've received this year has just been tremendous, and it keeps me going. So on that topic, thank you to anyone who has left a review on iTunes for the show. I read every single one of them. iTunes doesn't allow me to respond, doesn't allow anyone to respond, so I just have to read them, and I just want to acknowledge that they are touching. I've got about, 130 or so reviews, 5-star rating. Please, if you love the show, go ahead, leave a review on iTunes. It helps my rankings. I read them all, keeps me motivated. So yeah, sponsorship, fantastic, love it. Going to do more stuff with Net Registry throughout the year. Looking forward to that. Okay, what do we got now? Before I wrap up, I'm just going to talk about, I'm going to share what 2013 looks like for small business, big marketing. But I guess one of the personal journeys that I went on in 2012, and I know it motivated a few other listeners to do the same, was I lost a lot of weight. So in 2011, September of 2011, I had some spinal surgery, had a disc replaced in my neck, and I thought that was all good and well. But what I did find over the course of the months following, that it really knocked me around physically, mentally, emotionally. I just kind of found it, I kind of lost my mojo a bit. And I guess such serious surgery like that does that. So about 7 months ago, and I was overweight. I was just feeling tired. I was feeling a bit shitty. And that's not the normal, it wasn't the normal Timbo. I subsequently one day, and it wasn't as if I didn't know, and every now and then someone would kind of make a comment that, geez, you've been in a good paddock, Timbo. Every now and then someone would say to me or something like that. But I was around at a mate's place. It was about 7 months ago now. I was around at a mate's place one Saturday morning with my son, and my mate's name's Andrew, and Andrew gave me these two 15-kilogram dumbbells. He said, "Hey, Timbo, can you hold these?" I said, "Sure, no worries." And I said, "Is there any reason I'm holding these, mate?" A minute later, why am I holding? He goes, "Oh, that's the amount of weight you're carrying that you shouldn't be." And that kind of was a bit of a wake-up call to me. I don't know, I was just at that point in time, I was ready to hear a message like that. It was in front of my son, so it had additional impact. And I looked at him and said, that's interesting. So the next day, I go around to another mate's place, Ben, and I say to Ben, "Benny, I have lost the mojo and I need to get back feeling well again. The operations knock me around. There's lots I want to do in my business. There's lots I am doing in my business, and I want to continue doing it." So Ben is a very motivated guy, and he's also a chiropractor, although that has nothing to do with the story except that he knows the body well. And he said, "Okay, as of right now, stop eating carbs, and I'll meet you at gym at 6:15 tomorrow morning." And for 2 months, I did that. And for 2 months, Ben stood by me at gym every day, and I broke through that pain barrier. Like anything in business or in personal stuff, there's that period of time when you just find it downright hard, and you wonder, is it all worthwhile? And for me, that was a 2-month period that Ben stood by me. Long story short, I have now, in a 12-month period, I have dropped 30 kilograms, and in that period of 6 months since I saw Ben and said, can you help me here? I have lost 20 kilograms. Okay, so It's been amazing, an amazing journey. One of the funny things that resulted from that, I've done a lot of keynote speaking this year. And in the keynotes, one of the things I talk about in keynote speaking is the power of video marketing. And I suggest, and I show my video business card. I have a 2-minute video business card that shows me in action to potential clients. And that video business card was filmed about 2.5 years ago. And I was tracking, I was tipping the scales at 128 kilograms. And I just look big. It's a bloke. It's big. I'm big anyway. I'm 6'4", but I had in this video. I've got about 8 chins. Got more chins than a Chinese phone book, and I was just big. And so I played this video business card, and I have to preface it by saying, "Hey, listen, I promise you that is me in the video you're about to see." And it just sparks so much interest. I'm here I am giving a keynote about marketing. And then at the end, what happens is people come up and they want to talk about marketing, but amazingly, a huge amount of people also want to talk about weight loss and getting well. Now, I tell you that story because, look, I am really proud of having lost 30 kilograms and gotten physically fit and gotten back my mojo. Although I haven't got it completely back, to be totally honest with you. The spinal surgery continues to knock me around a bit, and I just think that's the nature of it. I had a disc replaced in my neck, basically, is what happened, and it's just going to be a long track to getting that 100% mojo back. Suffice to say that the reason I share this story with you is that I do see a lot of small business owners throughout the course of a year, and I talk to a lot, whether it be on my mastermind calls, keynote speaking, coaching, going to conferences and events, and a lot of us are just not looking after ourselves as well as we could be. So it's a bit of a cliche. As a new year approaches, I'm sure there's a lot of New Year's resolutions around health and well-being, but I don't know. I'd get serious about it. For me, I think, it's different for everyone. People ask me how I did it, and I'm always willing to share that story, but it is different for everyone, and you've got to figure out what is it for you that's going to work best. For me, it just required it. It happened to be a mate basically telling me I was 30 kilograms overweight, and subsequently doing something about it, having a mate who then stood by me and make it happen. I think one of the things we all need is someone to stand by us, and that's easier said than done. Like, I knew I had to eat less carbs, right? And I knew I had to move more. But those two, that's academic. It was the third thing of having that person stand alongside me and motivate me each day and help me and give me advice and point me in directions and tell me to, pull my finger out and get real. It was fantastic. And I just think in business and in marketing, we all need someone to do that as well. It's part of the reason. It's a major reason I started my deep dive mastermind session. The deep dive mastermind where we meet every Tuesday, 10 a.m. via webinar, and 10 small business owners sit around the virtual table. I host it, and every single one of them gives a marketing update on their business and poses a marketing question to me and to the rest of the group. And it has been incredibly powerful way of being and staying motivated and taking action. And I just think, one of the things I'd encourage everyone to do is to join my mastermind or a mastermind, or find a mentor, or find someone who's willing to meet with you once a week and you can bounce ideas off. You can't do it alone, and part of the reason, a major reason I do this show is to help. It's kind of to pay it forward. I've had people who have helped me in business, and I want to pay it forward. And I know Phil McKenney, the guy from the Killer Innovations podcast, he does it for the same reason. He had a mentor years and years ago, and all the mentor asked of him was that he pay it forward. And instead of Phil paying it forward to one other person, Phil started his Killer Innovations podcast by, that was his way of paying it forward. And I guess I'm doing exactly the same thing with this free show, with Small Business Big Marketing, and with the Deep Dive Mastermind, which isn't free, but is incredibly inexpensive. If you want to check Deep Dive Mastermind out, go to deepdivemastermind.com, and you can find out all about that. I'm going to be opening it up again in the new year and starting another group as well. So we're coming to the end, guys. We just hit the hour mark. 2013 for me, and for Small Business Big Marketing. Look out. Look out. There's going to be more interviews. At the moment, I'm putting an interview out every Tuesday. I'm going to up the ante on that. I'm going to be putting out, possibly up to 3 interviews a week. That's going to be my aim. There's going to be more blog posts. Go to the Small Business Big Marketing blog. There's some gold sitting there. You can send in a question at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com via voicemail or email. And if it's a marketing question, I'll answer it. And sometimes the guys at Net Registry answer it. If it's an online marketing question, I'll get them to answer it. And that becomes a blog post and it'll be dedicated to you. I'm going to put a lot of effort. I've got this software installed on my website called Crazy Egg, which is heat mapping software. It shows you where people are hitting on the website the most. And the 2 most hit parts of my website are podcasting and products. Okay, podcasting has been updated every week. There's lots of content, and my product section will be updated with a lot more quality training products, productivity tools, books I've read that I think you should read that'll help your marketing. And I'm going to be updating that on a pretty regular basis. I'm going to be creating some training products, and they're all going to be posted on the products page. So I want smallbusinessbigmarketing.com to be a portal for small business owners around the world to find fantastic information that will help improve your marketing. That's it. You know, a one-stop shop for great marketing advice. And so more interviews and some fantastic training products that you can listen to and download in your own time. If you've got an idea for a product that you want, that you'd like, feel free to email me, tim@smallbusinessbigmarketing.com, and I will absolutely endeavour to try and create it. And if I can't create it, I'm sure I'll know someone who either has created something that answers your question, or I can go and create it with them, because I know a lot of marketing specialists who are A players in their particular marketing field. What else have I got? For me personally, lots more of the show. I'm going to be doing a lot more keynote speaking. That's certainly a big part of my 2013. I did some fantastic gigs. I did about 16 keynotes in the last quarter of 2012. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Takes it out of you. You've got to be match fit, I've got to tell you. But it was fantastic, and I intend to continue doing that in 2013 and beyond. If you know someone who needs a keynote speaker around marketing, has an audience of small business owners, franchisees, entrepreneurs, people interested in marketing, feel free to get in contact with me. I'm putting a site together, timreid.com.au, that's REID, and that's going to be my speaker site. That is in production as we speak. What other things? Avoid perfection. That's kind of one of my... I've got some New Year's resolutions, which I'm kind of toying with. I'm not a big one for making New Year's resolutions, but there's a couple that I am going to spend some time with. One is to be kinder on myself. I'm pretty hard on myself. I don't know about you, but I can be... I was talking to Lukey about this yesterday, and I can actually be quite hard on myself. And, you know, you see, Luke made the point of just kind of drawing my attention to what I have achieved throughout the year. And sometimes we get so busy on the next thing that we don't reflect on what we have achieved. And I don't do that enough. And I'm going to tread more lightly on myself this year. And I encourage you to do the same. If you're one of those people who's just constantly knocking down walls trying to get stuff done, I think it is a nice time to sit back and reflect, and exactly what I've done, I guess, in this show has been a little bit cathartic for me to actually be able to sit down and just reflect on the year that was. Now, I've got this point here. What do I ask of you, the listener? You know what? I don't ask a lot. This show is a way of paying it forward, is a way of kind of saying thank you to people who have helped me and passing on quality information. And by the way, it's not all me. I mean, the guests I've had, I just can't believe the stuff that my guests share. So, you know, thank you to them. But, you know, if you do want to help the show, tell people about it. I get a lot of email from listeners saying, you know, anyone I get the chance to speak to, any small business owner that I come across, I tell them about your show. Please do. Please send a link. You know, stop now and send a link to send a smallbusinessbigmarketing.com link to someone in your email address book. Leave a comment on the show notes. Leave a comment on this show notes. What did you think about this episode? This is the longest I've ever spoken in one hit to a microphone. As I said at the start, there's normally someone at the other end who I bounce off. please leave a comment on one of the show notes or on iTunes, leave a review, or go to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com and send me a voicemail or an email with a marketing question. The more I know you're out there, the more I stay motivated, the more shows I'm going to produce, and I know what you want to hear. When I get questions, I look at those questions and go, that's what you want to hear about. Cool. Well, I'll find someone who I can interview about that topic. Get involved, guys. One of my big things for the coming year is to build the community real time. As I said, may do live events, do want to have some meetups. We do want to organise meetups. Well, obviously Melbourne's easy for me because that's where I live. Sydney I go to fairly regularly. I think I've got a little bit of overseas travel this year coming my way. So I do want to organise some meetups. I'll use the meetup.com function, and when I do that, if you're registered at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com, you'll be the first to know about it, and I'll talk about it in upcoming shows if there is a meetup organised, but it'll also include that on my email list. I'm going to wrap it up there and finish with a Seth Godin quote. Seth Godin, in fact, one of my big aims is to get him on the show. Actually, that's the other thing. For guests, upcoming guests. As I said, I've got Mia Friedman coming up. She'll be the next episode, actually. And she shares an insight which she calls the emotional entry point. It's a marketing strategy about creating great messages. And you know how big I am on getting your message right before you worry about where to put it. Mia talks about this thing called the emotional entry point. Oh my God, it is marketing gold. It drips. It'll drip out of your ear speakers. That sounded revolting. It'll drip out of your iPod speakers, whatever. It's gold. I've got Sam Kavanagh. Sam is the national executive producer of the Oz Stereo Network. He's responsible for all the big radio programs in Australia, and he talks about how to take your listeners from being listeners to raving fans, and that applies to any small business, whether you've got listeners or customers or an audience or whatever, you've got prospects, how to turn them into raving fans. And it's a really interesting mindset change. I interview an award-winning bed and breakfast owner, a little guy from country New South Wales. He's worked at Michelin hat restaurants in London, and he's doing great things with his little bed and breakfast in country Canberra, actually, ACT. Who else have I got? I got a great interview. I love public speaking as a marketing strategy, just in case you didn't know. And I interviewed this guy, Ben. He's a public speaking expert, and he takes us through a process on how to overcome all those public speaking fears and get on that stage and start building your personal profile and selling from stage. As I said, Seth Godin, my marketing guru. If you haven't heard from him, if you have heard from him, can you send him my way? If you haven't heard of him, go and buy the book Purple Cow. Fantastic marketing book. Suffice to say, I want to get Seth on the show, and I want to finish with a quote from Seth Godin that I heard him talk about in a recent interview that I was listening to him on another podcast. And the interviewer said, Seth, tell us about success. Have you got a quote around success? And Seth said this. He said, in order to be successful, be generous and do something that scares you. Isn't that beautiful? Be generous and do something that scares you. And that quote is going to drive me this year in 2013, because I think the idea of being generous, you get what you give. The universe does deliver. I really believe that. And if you put it out there, it'll come back, and generosity comes back in multiples, I always find. And do something that scares you. And I love that, because I think every time I find myself in my comfort zone, I kind of go, this ain't much fun. What do I got to do to insert a circuit breaker? And generally it's identifying something that's going to scare me, that's challenging, that is different, that I haven't done before, that I don't have experience in, that's going to help me move forward. So be generous and do something that scares you. Okay, guys, that's it from me. That's an hour and 11 minutes. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm running out of voice, as you can probably hear. I just want to say thank you, a really big thank you. If you're listening, thank you. If you've listened all year, thank you. If you've listened to Small Business Big Marketing for the last 3.5 years, for the last 115 episodes, thank you. it's cliched, but I wouldn't be here without you guys. You know, I don't do it hoping that there's someone out there. I know people are out there, and I love the fact that you're out there benefiting from what I have to share, what my guests have to share. I benefit from hearing from you. Please make contact. Let me know what you're thinking, what you love, what you don't love, how we can do it better. But what I wish for you for the coming 12 months is wonderful, wonderful business growth, personal growth, health, wellness, look after yourself, be kind to yourself, be kind to your mother, and just enjoy what you're doing. And if you don't, maybe consider what else you can be doing, and be brave, be generous, do something that scares you. I love your work, I love your marketing, and I really look forward to sharing more of it in 2013. Until then, see you later.
You've been listening to the Small Business Big Marketing Show with Tim Reid. Want more marketing goodness? Then visit smallbusinessbigmarketing.com.